Good evening and welcome to Insights and Perspectives. This is brought to you by the League of Women Voters of San Jose, Santa Clara. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that work for political awareness and education and encouraging active citizenship by everyone in our community. Tonight we bring to you a very wonderful lady who's working in such an important field for our county of Santa Clara, and this is Esther Peralez-Dieckman. Thank you. And she is the director of the Office of Women's Policy. And you know what? This really sounds like a challenging job these days, especially when something like that can be overlooked due to economics and political climate. And we certainly have had our challenges in the last few years.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and I'm happy to have you and have this opportunity to talk about the many things that you do with your office and with everyone that you influence. Esther, tell us, how did you find yourself in this position?
Well, you know, I think the work of advocacy on behalf of women and girls was something that started very early for me. My parents were activists in the Southwest. I'm originally from Texas.
Oh, okay.
And they were very involved in the early Chicano movement in Texas, where, you know, Chicano communities, Latino communities were really looking at issues of, you know, how can we have a voice at decision making? How can we advance economically? And I think that lens first came, you know, in the 1970s. I was about 6, 7 years old when my parents were actively doing those things. And, you know, it's interesting because it was a very similar struggle for women. You know, we were looking at how do we get more women into office? How do we get more Latinos into office? So there were some parallel themes that happened. And I think that really influenced my lens for looking at, you know, who are the people who are impacted by our policy and how are they represented in decision making?
Or not represented.
Exactly. And I think, you know, in looking at the influences and the people that I worked with throughout those years, because as I finished high school and college, I stayed in the work of advocacy. Worked in youth services, worked with women and girls, nonprofit organizations that served them. And I often saw that women played a key role in a lot of the work that happened. If they weren't the primary decision makers, they were really the backbone of many organizations, many movements that were out there. But I also saw the struggles of many women who were in transition, you know, living with divorce, living with domestic violence, living with different things that happened to women that changed the course of their life. So it was something that inspired me to see women be able to survive and to sort of make the shift and take care of their families, take care of their community. So those were themes that I always saw growing up in the work that I did throughout the Southwest. And it was something that stayed with me. So now with the County of Santa Clara, I have an opportunity to really look at conditions for women and girls. And really, are we doing everything we can to make sure that women and girls advance because of their contributions to our community?
And that wonderful potential that's there.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, I know your office began in 1998. When did you come to it?
So I've been the director of the office for almost 10 years. Next month it'll be 10 years. But yes, the office was formed in 1998. At the time, Supervisor Blanca Alvarado, who was the first Mexican-American woman on the San Jose City Council and then the County Board of Supervisors, you know, as they were getting reports on, you know, programs and data of the county, she noticed there was nothing about women and nothing about gender in the reporting. So she'd ask the question and people sort of didn't have a response, or, you know, we don't collect data like that. And so she started pushing people to say, what's happening to women and girls? You know, first of all, you don't know if there's a problem unless you have some sort of evidence. So data was the first step, and the office was created specifically to create a focus and a lens for women within the county.
And collect that data.
And to really push to collect data. So that's really the role our office has played throughout the years. We've looked at how do the programs and services of Santa Clara County serve women and girls, and how do our systems interact, what are the key issues, and what can we do to better meet their needs so that we can improve the status of women.
And who are we missing?
Exactly.
In those
numbers. And who are the voices that are still sort of under the radar? You know, the immigrant women, low-wage women workers, women who are living with domestic violence. There are many communities, there are many groups of women out there that are silent and that don't have representation and don't have a way to say, this is my issue, this is what's happening to me, I need help and resources. So I think that's where our office can play a key role.
Absolutely. We can't get policy change unless we've got that research done, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
You certainly can't get money moved into a program unless you can prove that there is a need and how it's going to affect a change.
And I think that's where our office has been one of the few places anywhere in Silicon Valley that has a consistent focus and data on women. We have been observing that even in the forecasts of the economy of Silicon Valley, many times we don't talk about what's happening for women or what women need. So our office has produced the State of Women and Girls report. We'll be looking at doing that report this year as well and beginning to update the data for 2016, which will be a very important year for us in terms of the election, but also to find out, are we making progress on the work happening for women and girls?
Right. Well, I think it's wonderful that you've been there for 10 years because you have some background in which to make comparison and have watched and seen success too.
Absolutely.
I noticed that you've got a conference coming up for women and girls. And I think we have a slide to put up so that we can focus on the title of it, Strong Girls and Strong Women. And this is a conference March 7th. And where is that taking place?
This is a conference that we do annually in collaboration with the American Association of University Women San Jose.
Yes.
We are holding it at Mexican Heritage Plaza.
Oh, yes.
We expect anywhere between 250 and 325 young women and older women and their mothers, their sponsors, their teachers. So it's a conference that actually incorporates both women and girls.
Yes.
And we look at themes of how do we build leadership for women and girls? What are the pressing issues for us? And what are ways that we can get engaged civically so that women do have a voice in our community? Because I think if we start very young, we can influence young women, inspire young women that this is the standard thing that we have to do. To keep a focus on women and girls, to make sure that we're getting our needs met, and that there's resources and programming and support wherever women need it.
Yes, and you have choice in your future.
Absolutely.
And if you can hit the girls young enough so that they can set their own goals and move towards those. But unless they're told about it, and frequently it has to come from more than just the school, it must come from the community as well.
And they have amazing feedback. I think, you know, when they come, they're ready to talk, they're ready to say, this is what I see, this is what's happening in my school, this is what's happening to me, and they're really hungry for connection to other girls, to other women, and they want to know, what can I do from where I am?
Yeah, I don't think that conversation really takes place very often. Or not often enough. I think that's a wonderful service, and I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to mention that conference.
We started it out as a county-focused event, but we are actually drawing girls from multiple counties, and the feedback we're getting from the girls and their mothers is, there's nothing like this for us. We really need something like this, and we really want more of this. So we're excited. It's something that we do every year. So
that's marvelous.
We'd love to have as many people involved as possible.
Absolutely. So that's March 7th for our audience, and we'll make sure that that gets up and out and people hear about it.
Yes, great.
Your office now is actually in charge or staffs several other commissions for the county. And what do those entail?
So I think, you know, for folks that are out there, the role of county commissions and boards that advise various topics, they're really important because it is the way that the community can have a direct impact on the dialogue happening within government. At the county, we have over 40 boards and commissions that serve different issues. We have the Commission on the Status of Women that we provide professional staffing to and policy support. We also have our Domestic Violence Council. We have a newly formed Human Trafficking Commission that is brand new for Santa Clara County.
And that's the one that Supervisor Cindy Chavez is so much behind.
Yes, she really championed, you know, this need to really look at human trafficking because there's so many intersections to violence against women within human trafficking. And there just hasn't been enough focus and resources placed on it.
Absolutely.
So we're really grateful to her that she's raised the profile on the issue in a way that hasn't happened. At least for the 10 years that I've been here.
Yeah, no, I think it really is just in the last couple of years where we've woken up and realized just how vulnerable our Bay Area is to this entire issue.
And I think, people should realize that the San Francisco Bay Area is one of the main entry points for human trafficking of any place in the country. So the way we respond, the way we identify trafficking in our communities, it really takes a lot for a coordinated response. So we've actually spent the last 10 years as the county partnering with local groups, with law enforcement, through an organization called the South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking.
Yes.
And they have been on the front lines. These are the attorneys, the social workers, state and federal law enforcement, FBI, ICE, and different stakeholders that have all dealt directly with victims and the response.
Right.
Because I think that frontline work, we have learned so much about what it takes to identify trafficking victims, rescue them, prosecute the traffickers, and really move people to another place where they can break that cycle and really reintegrate back into the community and find more meaningful circumstances and a way to support themselves beyond the trafficking that has happened.
Absolutely. We actually have a hotline, and we're going to put it on the screen more than once during this time together because it is important, and people need to know that that's available to them. And there's also a local phone number on there, so be sure and check that out. So we have both the national hotline and the local one. And there's a lot of things I really would like to delve in with you, and I believe we have a fun fact coming up. And that's one of those things where we take a short break and see something that is not related to this at all, kind of test our knowledge of different odds and ends, and frequently it's a political fun fact. And I think that's coming. Now, you've just learned about our flag, and I think that's kind of interesting about the Stars and Stripes. Most people don't know much about how our flag arrived at its present configuration. I'd like to go back to some of the initiatives that your department's been in charge of forging and bringing forth. And then we'll return to that topic of human trafficking as well, because there's some more things I'd like us to discuss there. But during your 10 years, I'm sure you've had some favorite things that you've gotten done, or things that have been more of a challenge for you. So could you share some of those with us?
Some of the work that when I first joined the County of Santa Clara, some of what we were seeing was just, again, following the theme of what's happening here. At the time, there was a big focus on what was happening in our county jail system. And there were reports from law enforcement about increased arrests of women for sex work, particularly from immigrant communities. And so they were questioning, why is that happening? We also kept seeing women coming into the jail system at a much faster rate than the men. And we just didn't know a whole lot about what was the profile of the female offender. Why did she come to jail? What are the life circumstances she's experiencing, and what does she need to break the system, the cycle of incarceration? So we sponsored an initiative called Breaking Cycles, Rebuilding Lives, and it was the first gender analysis at the jail level. There's some data on women at the prison level.
At the state-like level?
Yeah, okay. But at the time, we had county jail that we were dealing with, which was really considered short-term incarceration, roughly 110 days stay. But we kept seeing these themes emerge, and so the Board of Supervisors asked us to partner with the Department of Correction and the Commission on the Status of Women. So we embarked on a big effort to do focus groups with women, to tour the jail, to talk to staff, to look at training, to really just illuminate what is the life circumstance of these women. Why are they coming into the system? And we found, many of them were coming in because of drugs. We were also seeing lots of crimes of survival. petty theft, forgery. And so as we started talking to more female offenders, we were finding out almost universally these women had experiences with violence against women. Many of them as children, and that later got involved. Almost universally, we see domestic violence as a huge problem for incarcerated women. And so we had to start looking at what are the programs and services that will help these women deal with that trauma, deal with that experience, so that they can sort of move forward and come back to the community, get on their feet. And so the work we've done over the last 10 years is really to raise awareness about that, the best practices to support women who are incarcerated and what they need to break the cycle. And I think we have to think about what's at stake with the female offender. Estimated 75% to 78% of children of offenders, of incarcerated people, are with the mother. So her incarceration has a very profound impact on young people. And really, is this the next generation of jail population? That was a big concern and question for us, because there's additional trauma and damage being done to those young people who lose a parent, who have that separation. And then the reality that it is the connection and the continued communication with the parent that is so important. A lot of times offenders leave for jail and the family sort of forgets them. They sort of take in their kids wherever they can.
Or they get fostered.
Yeah, and they enter our foster care system. But one of the things that we found is children need connection to their parents, even when they're incarcerated. So we've done a lot to really promote reunification and connection. So the Commission on the Status of Women came up with a really great project, which was our book project. We came in with children's books and helped the mothers read the books on tape. We created little CDs and books, and we brought those to the children as a gift with the message from the parent. And it was really profoundly impactful to the women. Their connection and their realization that their children need them, that they need their children.
Well, it gives them some hope too.
Absolutely.
I can change, I can make a difference, and I can be there for them.
Right. And we eventually did that on the men's side, and we found that the men were equally as responsive.
Oh yes, yes, I would think so. There's that sense of worth. Am I really worth anyone spending any time on to improve, or can I even improve? And if I can, small steps, then when I do get released, I've got something to do or look forward to or go forward in or with.
One of the interesting things from all that work has been that it produced an award-winning report, Breaking Cycles, Rebuilding Lives, that we presented on nationally. And if you look at the recommendations that we gave back in 2008 when the report first came out, they exactly paralleled what's happening with our current jail system and the whole realignment issue, where state-level offenders, who are considered the low-level offenders, they're coming back to our community, and we're really challenged by how do we support them, how do we reintegrate them into our community, and what are the resources they need. And we found what we were recommending for the women back then is completely relevant and aligned with what they're asking for all offenders from the re-entry realignment process. So we sort of advocate for this idea. Sometimes problems for women, when you address them and you fix them, they're going to have benefit for everyone.
Oh yes, yes. It's still the strong person in the family still tends to be, and it doesn't matter which culture, it is the woman. And it's frequently it's the woman that's holding not only the job but also the home together. And hopefully she has a supportive partner, but frequently she doesn't.
Right, and I think that's where our office has also looked at things like, what is the economic opportunity for women? What kind of jobs are we looking at? Our last State of Women and Girls report, which came out in 2012, was showing that we still see women clustered in lower level, lower paying professions.
The minimum wage.
Right, particularly. So if we're talking about living wage or these vulnerable workers that are experiencing, all these issues in the workforce, not getting paid, wage theft, different things. We're talking about a lot of women.
Well, when you add in the piece of babysitting to the wage, and you don't even break even.
Right, so when we have things like unequal pay, or we don't have family-friendly policies in the workplace, it is women that are mostly deeply impacted by that. So we have spent a lot of time advocating for policies to support workers because we know women bear a lot of the brunt of that.
Absolutely. Right, and I've often thought sometimes it happens so soon or so early in their lives, that sense of, well, I don't read well enough, so I really can't move ahead, or I can't go ahead and take another course or raise in my job status, that lack of confidence. And I don't think some people even actually are aware of how they impact another when they make comments about them,
Right.
or their appearance or whatever personal comments they might be making.
Right.
And
I think that's one of the challenges for a place like Silicon Valley. You know, one of the things that we see are the investments in this economy, this green economy. And so we've advocated for how are women taking part of all of those benefits of building a green economy. And we've done some initiatives, had some programs that really focused on moving women into non-traditional areas. Not only STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, and math, but building trades, plumbing, electrical work, HVAC work. And we've had some success even with female offenders moving into those areas. So,
well, I think that's marvelous because I still think those people are just a treasure.
Yes, and the bottom line is wherever women are, there are opportunities to sort of move forward, and we just have to find ways to be ready to do that.
All you have to do is have your house lose its hot water the day before Christmas, and you are desperate for a plumber.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Pay anything.
And women can do those jobs very well.
Yes, no question about that. Yes.
So we're excited. We've had some success in moving women into those professions.
In those fields, right, right. I think that's just marvelous. Let's go back to this issue of trafficking because this is January, and January is Human Trafficking Month. Across the nation, lots of awareness things are going on. I happen to be wearing an orange bracelet because the United Nations has the program of on the 25th of each month to wear orange, and it's their campaign Unite Against Violence Against Women and Girls. And locally, you mentioned before the coalition that's been formed in this area, and the fact that our Bay Area is such a high level of trafficking coming in, and from the Asian areas especially, but also from the South, and then we're looking to a Super Bowl coming, which is of course a major target for trafficking.
In some ways, you know, the Super Bowl was helpful because when large-scale sporting events happen, there is increased focus and law enforcement on crime in general.
Okay.
So, you know, we suspect, and because it's been shared with us by FBI and other law enforcement agencies, that around things like Super Bowl, you see spikes in activity like human trafficking. So I guess the point we want to really be clear on is human trafficking happens every day. It's happening right now.
Yes.
It happens where we least expect it. It could be happening in our own towns, our cities, our neighborhoods. And so we're doing a lot right now to try to educate the community about what is human trafficking, how do you identify it, and the funding for law enforcement this year, the county devoted $1.2 million in funding for human trafficking. That's the largest amount that we've ever put out for the issue of human trafficking. So we've been able to put more resources in the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office to help with the apprehension and prosecution of the trafficker. We've always looked at the needs of the victims, and that is super important.
Yes, and to separate the two.
And to have those three, you know,
one's a crime, definitely.
Right.
And California does have strong laws on the books.
Right.
And stronger than many other places, and including many other countries. But then the victims are a whole nother story, aren't they?
Right, and I think that's, you know, the county just formed a human trafficking commission, and that was championed by Supervisor Cindy Chavez. And the reason she brought this commission forward was because we needed to raise the profile on human trafficking. The Super Bowl is an excellent opportunity for us to do that. And really the commission is trying to focus on 4 areas. And prevention is the way, you know, we are out there talking to the community about how to spot human trafficking. What do you do when you think something's just not right in your neighborhood? There's a house where you don't see, you know, the woman leaving very often. You see kids that don't go to school. There's all kinds of ways that the community can help us identify where there might be some problems. So we want to do a lot of education and awareness on trafficking, and also to look at the next P of the 4 Ps, which is protection. That once we identify, we rescue and secure and bring to safety those survivors, because those are operations that are extremely sensitive, that takes a lot of coordination between law enforcement and the victim service providers. And that once we do that, once we rescue the victim, how do we move then to get to the trafficker? And that's the piece where, you know, the law enforcement, the prosecution part is super critical of how we're going to do that. And then to look at partnerships, because even those that are outside of law enforcement or victim services, if whether you're a church, a school, a business, There's lots of communities out there, a lot of sectors that can get involved in
Yes.
human trafficking. Certainly the business community. We're really excited that the Chamber of Commerce locally is very active on this. They want to know what can businesses do, because
excellent.
Forced labor, involves business.
Well, and that's a big piece of it, is the economic piece that's attached to trafficking.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So the Commission is bringing together all 4 of those areas and really looking at what is our response locally, how do we prepare for Super Bowl 2016, and most importantly, how do we respond right now as a community with the trafficking that's happening here in Santa Clara County.
And an identified victim has what level of support and where that support might come from. We want to put up the hotline again for people so that they are familiar with that, and also the local number, which is 408-918-4960. So those are numbers where something can be reported.
Yes, so the national hotline is for anyone who may be a victim of human trafficking that needs help. They may not want involvement with law enforcement. They just need some sort of relief. Sometimes it's just, I want to get my wages, or there's some sort of issue that they want nothing to do with law enforcement. There's a hotline that can help you with that. We're concerned in Santa Clara County that we're seeing increases of trafficking, especially of minors. Child trafficking is a huge
12 to
problem.
14, they say, is the critical age, or the age in which you find the majority.
And that's a growing problem all across the Bay Area. So the Sheriff's Department is really interested in people out there that if you see something not right, if you see young people that you think may be exploited, whether it's prostitution, whether it's some sort of labor, that hotline of the Sheriff's Department, they can call. They can just share what they're concerned about, and the sheriffs will respond.
This is so valuable, Esther. Thank you so much. And your own website at the county office is available, and the phone number too. I think they're going to put that on the screen, along with our Smart Voter and League of Women Voters contact information. We want you to know that the League is always in support of what you do, and many of our members have been involved in the commissions and worked hard and supported you in your leadership. Thank you so much. And we invite you to go to our websites and find out more about the League and our county office that handles women's policies. Thank you.